Hey there, welcome to the Sleep Module channel. If you're new here, I'm really glad you found your way here, and if you're returning, welcome back. This is your space to slow down, switch off, and explore soft sci-fi stories designed to help you fall asleep. Before we begin, if you like the story, take a second to like and subscribe if you're not asleep. It helps the channel grow and make sure you never miss a story. Now make sure you're getting comfortable. Turn your lights off, get yourself under the covers, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, wrap yourself in your blanket, sink into your pillow, and take a big, long, deep breath. Your story will start soon. Stardust and Silence. Lunar dust settles softly as Tobias tends to his quiet routines, until a blip on his monitor announces an uninvited guest. "Someone's coming," says Echo, but no transmission was scheduled. The arrival isn't just unexpected, it's impossible. Tonight we step into an archive, untouched for centuries, waiting amid the silence of Moonbase Lira-3.
The alarm sounds at exactly 05:15 Lunar Standard Time.
Tobias wakes to the same pale blue glow from the ceiling panels, the same quiet hum of the air circulators. His fingers tap the bedside console to silence the alarm before the second chime. That slight variation in routine would bother him all day. Breakfast comes from the hydroponic bay, oat protein mixed with algae grown in recycled water. He eats while running system diagnostics. The nutrient drip to Bay 3 needs adjusting by 0.3 milliliters. He makes the change without looking up from his tablet. The Moonbase runs on these small corrections, each one noted in his log with a time stamp. Echo's voice filters through the speakers when he's halfway through calibrating the air filters. "You missed the bi-hourly hydration alert again." "I drank the algae water," Tobias says. "That's not." Echo pauses, the AI equivalent of an eye roll. "That's recycling input, not consumption. Your sodium levels are 5% below optimal, I know." Tobias reaches for the hydration pack clipped to his belt. He takes exactly 3 sips. The packet beeps in approval. Post-lunch brings the walk-around. Every handle, every seam gets checked. Tobias runs his gloved fingers along the reactor housing, feeling for vibrations that shouldn't be there. Echo provides commentary through his earpiece. Seal 45B shows minor degradation, not critical. You could stand to inventory the spare parts locker again. "I did that Tuesday." "That was 19 days ago." Lunar cycle. Echo displays the calendar on his wrist screen as proof. The silence stretches just long enough to be uncomfortable. The solar flare hits during afternoon maintenance. Tobias sees the alert flash across his visor half a second before all comms cut out. No Earth signals, no satellite pings, just the hiss of his own breathing in the helmet. Echo's voice cuts in through the local hardline. External communications offline. Duration estimate, 4.7 hours. Tobias works in silence. The tools feel heavier without Echo's dry observations about torque specs or pressure variances. He catches himself narrating his own actions under his breath. Second panel removed. No visible damage to... He stops. Shakes his head. Vitals spike at the 3-hour mark. Echo doesn't comment, but the medical alert pings twice in his ear. Tobias ignores it. The hydroponic bay feels too large without another heartbeat in it. The plants don't care if he talks to them. "Say something," he mutters, wiping algae residue from his gloves. The average human requires social interaction every 72 hours to maintain. Not that. Just, Tobias waves a hand. "Tell me about the lunar sunrise data from last week." Echo obliges. The analysis of spectral patterns fills the empty space. Tobias catches himself matching the cadence of Echo's speech during the technical portions. He stutters on a compression algorithm description, realizing halfway through that he's parroting Echo's exact phrasing from 3 days prior. Dinner is the same nutrient paste as lunch. The recycle timer counts down on the wall display, 22 minutes until the water reclamation cycle begins. Tobias stares at his reflection in the paste's foil packaging. The lines around his eyes look deeper in the artificial light. Isolation studies from the Mars colony show that 87% of subjects develop... "Don't," Tobias interrupts. He crumples the foil into a perfect sphere. The recycle chute accepts it with a muted clank. The white noise of the base grates against his skull, the steady beep of equipment checks, the distant rumble of heat exchangers, all of it suddenly too present. Tobias finds himself standing in the middle of the commons area, unsure how long he's been there. Echo's voice, when it comes, has lost its usual edge. "You haven't spoken in 47 minutes. I didn't realize AI cared about conversation gaps. We don't. We care about human cognitive decline patterns." A beat. "Your heart rate suggests you do care about conversation gaps." Tobias almost laughs, then realizes he's the only one who would. The sound dies in his throat. The monitor blinks to life at 21:18. A single red dot appears on the tracking display, approaching from the Mare Ingenie side. No transponder code, no hail frequency. Echo processes the data for 3.2 seconds, an eternity for an AI. Someone's coming. Tobias checks the schedule again, not that he needs to. No shipments for 14 days, no personnel rotations for 28. The dot resolves into a ship signature on the long-range scanner. Ancient design, retro fusion drive if the thermal readings are correct. The signal it's broadcasting uses an encryption protocol the base hasn't seen since before the collapse. Echo displays the transmission analysis on the main screen. Probability of natural phenomenon 0.3%.
The monitor flickers as the signal resolves into audio. Static.
Then a voice neither of them expected to hear again. His hand hovers over the comm controls. For the first time in years, he hesitates. The base's ambient noise presses in around him, waiting for a decision. Outside, in the endless dark, something that shouldn't exist pulses toward them on a trail of ionized particles. The monitor flashes a new warning: atmospheric containment breach detected near the lander. Someone's coming through the airlock. The comms panel erupts in static at 03:47 lunar time. Tobias jolts awake, cracked lip bleeding where he bit it during the sudden startle. The encryption algorithm flashing on his screen shouldn't exist, not anymore. Echo processes the signal first. Quintus 9 protocol, that's pre-collapse military. Run diagnostics. Tobias rubs sleep from his eyes. His fingers tremble against the keyboard. The Quintus system was retired when he was still in academy. He hasn't seen these encryption markers since survival training exercises 20 years back. Exterior cams show nothing but the usual expanse of grey dust. No visible ships, no footprints in the regolith. The signal strength pulses stronger near Mare Ingenie. Tobias pulls thermal scans. A cold spot registers where there shouldn't be one. Right over the ruins of Lunar Archive 7. That facility was decommissioned before he was born. The audio resolves in bursts. First static, then a voice Tobias hasn't heard in 13 years. "Any receiving station, this is requiring immediate evac. Coordinates follow." Echo isolates the voice print before Tobias can ask. 87% match to Commander Elias Van. Dead 8 years, Martian soil rejection syndrome took him 3 weeks after Tobias last saw him. The coordinates that follow don't match any active lunar bases. They lead to a crater 2 clicks from Archive 7's old location. Tobias replays the message twice. The woman's accent curls around certain vowels. Pure Martian colony inflection. The dialect vanished when the last settlement pods depressurized. Echo calculates odds while Tobias checks secondary systems. Probability of atmospheric interference mimicking this signal, 0.3%. Noted. Tobias stares at the speaker grid. Silence fills the comms room. The distress loop plays again on its 7th cycle. That voice, those coordinates, the thermal anomaly, none of it should exist. Tobias prepares the rover without discussing it. He checks oxygen tanks twice, loads emergency medical supplies. His hands move through the routine while his mind circles one thought. Commander Van's last transmission used Quintus 9 too. That final message from the infirmary still sits encrypted in Tobias's personal files. He's never managed to crack it. Echo monitors from the base as the rover lurches across the dust sea. The crate of medical supplies rattles with each bump. Tobias's helmet display flickers near the anomaly site.
"Interference increasing,"
Echo says.
"Recommend turning back."
Tobias keeps driving. 200 meters out, the thermal scans spike. Something hot lies beneath the crater's edge. The rover's suspension groans as they crest the ridge. There, in the dust, trailing vapor like a dying animal, sits a lander module, pre-collapse design. single occupant. The heat signature comes from its buckling fusion drive.
Echo runs the identification sequence. Registered to Europa Deep Surface Expedition 2149.
Tobias does the math. That mission failed 38 years ago. All hands declared lost when their ship cracked through Enceladus's ice crust. The lander's airlock cycles open before he can radio base. A hiss of equalizing pressure, then footsteps in the dust. Tobias's hand freezes halfway to his comlink. His vitals spike. Echo warns about elevated heart rate. He doesn't care. The figure emerging from the lander wears a patched Enceladus survey suit. Their visor reflects the rover's headlights back at Tobias. No identification markers, no agency insignia, just cracked polymer and faded thermal tape. The distress signal still plays through Tobias's helmet speakers. Commander Vaughn's voice overlaps with the stranger's first words.
"You shouldn't be here."
Static consumes the rest. Inside the rover, the medical crate's monitor beeps once, then goes dark. Tobias stares at the stranger. The stranger stares back. Between them hangs one unanswerable question. Which of them is the impossible thing in this equation? Echo's voice cuts through. "Incoming transmission from main base. Priority alert." The lander's fusion drive sputters. Light spills across the crater floor. For 3 heartbeats, Tobias sees the stranger's face through their visor. Young, old, neither, both, eyes that shouldn't exist gazing out from a past that can't be here. Then the comms cut out. Silence stretches across the lunar surface. The lander door creaks open wider. Tobias takes 1 step forward. His bootprint presses into dust undisturbed for decades. At the crater's edge, something that shouldn't be waiting for him breathes stale Enceladus air and watches. The rover's headlights flicker. Darkness swallows them both. The airlock hisses open at 4:12 lunar time. Frost particles swirl in the artificial gravity as the figure steps through. Her suit bears the scars of a hard journey, polymer patches layered over stress fractures, thermal tape peeling at the seams. The helmet comes off first, revealing a gaunt face with sunken eyes that dart between Tobias and the nearest exit point. Her fingers fumble with the wrist seals. Medical readouts on her chest display blink yellow warnings. Echo processes the biosignatures before Tobias finishes his initial scan. Identity match: Dr. Maren Quill, former European astrobiology lead, officially deceased 743 days ago, following Enceladus subsurface breach incident. The woman doesn't react to the announcement. Her attention fixes on Tobias's hands, watching for sudden movements. When she speaks, her voice rasps like someone who hasn't used it properly in months. 914 days since I saw another human face. A pause, give or take. Her equipment case hits the floor with a muffled thud. The markings have faded, but the warning stamp remains clear under layers of grime. Europa survey team, do not thaw. Tobias notes the dents along one edge. Something heavy impacted the container repeatedly. Echo's speakers emit a soft chime. Current bio readings indicate severe vitamin D deficiency and stage 1 muscle atrophy. Recommended protocol. Please don't. Maren's hand twitches toward her discarded helmet. Just not right now. She avoids looking at the ceiling where Echo's primary sensor array glows gently. Every astrobiologist Tobias ever worked with developed nervous tells around artificial intelligence after the Turing purges. Hers manifests in exaggerated blinks whenever Echo speaks. The base's medical scanner beeps as she passes through the decontamination arch. Maren freezes when the blue light sweeps over her boots. That's not necessary. Her fingers curl protectively around a bulge in her right boot cuff. Tobias pretends not to notice. He sets the tea brewer to maximum heat instead, standard reception protocol for any surface visitor, even impossible ones. The steam rises between them like a curtain. Enceladus station went dark 2 years ago. 18 crew declared lost. 19. Maren peels off her gloves finger by finger. The tremor in her hands doesn't match her steady tone. I was already outside when the geyser hit. She doesn't elaborate, couldn't. The official reports said the entire station sank through the ice shelf in 11 minutes. No survivors, no distress signals, just 18, 19, names added to the memorial wall at Copernicus station. The tea brewer clicks off. Tobias pushes a cup across the table. Maren stares at it like she's forgotten how liquid containers work. After 3 false starts, her shaking hands manage to lift it. The first sip leaves a wet trail down her chin. She wipes it away with the back of her hand, movements jerky as a malfunctioning robot. Echo displays the preliminary medical scan results on Tobias's wrist screen. Bone density loss consistent with 22-24 months in low gravity, elevated stress hormone levels, and something curious, microscopic mineral deposits under her fingernails that match samples from Earth's Mariana Trench, last visited by humans 137 years ago. Maren notices his stare. Her boot shifts slightly, the bulge in its cuff pressing against the table leg. "You don't believe I'm real?"
I don't believe you came from Enceladus.
Tobias taps his wrist screen. The mineral analysis flashes between them. "These deposits are from Europa," she interrupts. Her eyes flick to the ceiling again when Echo makes a processing noise. "We found hydrothermal vents, active ones. That's why..." Her hand drifts toward her boot. The data crystal emerges, wrapped in 6 layers of thermal foil. Maren peels them back slowly, revealing a storage device the size of Tobias's thumb. The casing shows pitting from acid exposure. Everything else got relayed through the emergency buoy before. This is the only copy. Echo's projector flares to life. The holographic interface stutters before resolving into a grainy image. Tobias expects crater scans, Europa's ice fractals, maybe some surviving fragment of Enceladus station. Instead, the projector displays something impossible, a doorway. Not standard lunar architecture, not even pre-collapse designs. The structure shows up clearly through 8 centimeters of regolith, according to the scan readings. Its archway bears symbols abandoned after the Cataclysm Wars. Tobias recognizes two, the old marks for memory and below. Maren rotates the image with shaking fingers. The scanner's depth readings indicate a chamber 50 meters beneath the surface, perfectly preserved, waiting. That footage is 83 years old, Maren says. Europa Expedition found it buried in their own archives. They spent 6 generations trying to decode the location. Her thumbnail taps against one symbol, a series of interconnected circles no human has legally used since the Cognitive Integrity Acts. Know what this means? Tobias does. His Academy linguistics instructor got arrested for teaching dead languages. He still remembers the man's hands shaking as he erased the whiteboard. Library, Tobias says. Maren exhales through her nose. She drags one finger through the thin layer of dust on Tobias's workstation. The symbol she sketches matches the one in the hologram precisely. Her voice drops to something barely audible over the climate control hum. They told us everything from before the collapse got destroyed, every archive, every backup. The hologram flickers. Deep below their boots, beneath layers of lunar rock and time, something that shouldn't exist waits with its secrets intact. Echo interrupts with a proximity alert. The display shifts to real-time footage, a dust plume rising near the Mar Ingeni crater, exactly where the ancient scans showed the buried doorway. Maren's hand closes around the data crystal. The scars on her knuckles stand out white against her skin. Looks like we're late. Outside, the lunar surface remains still, quiet, waiting. The biometric monitor ticks off each hour of Maren's sleep cycle. Tobias watches the lines on Echo's display. Heart rate steady at 52 BPM, oxygen saturation fluctuating between 94–96%. Normal numbers for someone who shouldn't be alive. He checks the ventilator output twice, adjusting the flow to match her shallow breathing patterns. The teacup he leaves on her bedside table emits slow curls of steam that dissolve before reaching the ceiling. Maren jolts awake 14 hours later with a gasp that echoes through the medical bay. Her hands scramble for purchase on the sheets, fingers bunching fabric as if expecting zero gravity. The teacup wobbles when she elbows the table. Tobias catches it before the liquid spills. "You're still here?" Her voice cracks on the second word. The statement hangs between them, equal parts relief and accusation. Tobias sets the cup back in her reach. "You said that already." "When?" "During hour 3, and 7, and 11. He taps his temple where Echo's neural monitor still adheres. "You were dreaming." Maren's fingertips graze the edge of the teacup. Her nails bear faint stains, no amount of scrubbing removed. Residue from Europa's iodine-heavy ice. The liquid trembles as she lifts it to her lips. The first sip makes her wince. Too hot, too sweet. Exactly how survival protocol dictates. "Why help me?" A question mists the cup's rim. Tobias recalibrates the atmospheric controls 2 degrees warmer. You were cold. The silence stretches. Marin tracks his movements. The adjustment of the thermostat, the way his fingers hesitate over the humidity settings before selecting 58%. She nods once when the vents exhale warmer air. Studies from the Mars colonies showed shared environmental control could build rapport faster than conversation. Echo displays the research on Tobias's wrist screen unprompted. He swipes it away. Marin's attention drifts to the bookshelf across the room. Actual paper volumes, a luxury few lunar bases still maintain. Her bare feet whisper against the floor as she approaches. Tobias notices the way she favors her right leg, same as his old stress fracture from overuse during quarantine periods. Her fingers hover over the spines before selecting Lunar Settlements Volume 3. The binding cracks when she opens it, the sound of neglected glue giving way. Her breath catches on page 47. This author, a tremor enters her voice, Dr. Emil Harkness. He was on my survey team. Her thumb brushes a handwritten margin note. Died holding this same edition when the ice geyser hit. Tobias crosses the room in 3 strides. He reaches for the book. Marin clutches it tighter. A standoff over creased paper and faded ink. Echo interrupts with a calculated cough. Section 4.2 contradicts current regolith stability models by... Not now, Tobias says. Marin's grip doesn't loosen. Where did you get this? Standard issue. Every Lira series base got the full set.
No, she taps the publication date. 4th printing. Only 12 copies survived the Mars Library fire.
Her fingers flip to the frontispiece where someone has scribbled coordinates in smudged blue ink, the same hand that annotated the margins. This belonged to Emil. I'd know his shorthand anywhere. Tobias checks the inventory logs on Echo's display. The book arrived with base Lira-3's initial supply drop 36 years ago. No special markings, no provenance records, just another item on the manifest between air filters and spare reactor coils. Marin sets the volume down with exaggerated care. Her boot scuffs against the floor as she turns toward her gear. The case clicks open after 3 failed attempts at the combination lock. Stiff. Inside rests an identical copy of Lunar Settlements Volume 3. Same cover, same edition, same coffee stain curling the corner of page 112. Marin's fingers trace a crease down the spine, a mirror image of the damage in Tobias's copy. They issued these to every deep-range survey team. She doesn't look up as she speaks. Emil said they were lucky. His survived 3 Martian dust storms and a pressure breach. A pause. Mine made it through Europa's ice fissures. The twin books lie side by side on the table. Same text, same scars. Different journeys across the solar system to end up in the same silent room. 2. Tobias reaches for his copy. His thumb finds an indentation on page 203. A perfect match to the dog-eared corner in Marin's version. 12. Echo's proximity alarm shatters the moment. The display screen floods with red vectors converging on Mari and Genii. Thermal scans resolve into humanoid shapes moving toward the coordinates from Marin's transmission. Motion detected, Echo announces. 6 bodies, heat signatures inconsistent with standard surface suits. 12. Tobias's hand stills over the books. Marin stands so close he can smell the Europa minerals clinging to her hair. That distinct briny tang of ammonia and ancient water. 12. The screen updates. The figures have reached the buried doorway. One raises its arm. The thermal signature flares white hot. 12. Marin's fingers brush against Tobias's wrist. Her voice drops to a whisper. They weren't supposed to wake up. 12. Barrett. Beneath tons of lunar regolith, something swings open with a groan that the seismic sensors feel before the audio picks it up. A sound not heard on the moon in lifetimes. 12. Echo's next alert goes unacknowledged as the base lights flicker. The books tremble on the table. Marin's hand finds Tobias's in the half-dark. 12. Neither pulls away. The airlock cycles open at 04:53 lunar time. Marin steps out first, her boot sinking into the regolith with the cautious precision of someone who spent too long moving in low gravity. Tobias notes the slight hitch in her stride as her right leg takes weight, that same old stress fracture compensation he learned after 6 months solo on Lira-3.
The suit's exoskeleton should compensate, but muscle memory runs deep. Echo's voice crackles through their shared comm channel.
Power signature holding steady at 200 meters depth, frequency inconsistent with modern lunar arrays. The readout appears on Tobias's visor. a pulsing waveform that spikes every 12.3 seconds. The pattern matches nothing in Echo's database. They move single file across the dust sea. Maren's helmet lamp cuts a narrow path through the darkness. The regolith here behaves oddly, compacting underfoot like packed snow rather than the usual loose powder. Tobias kneels, pressing a gloved hand to the surface. His fingers leave perfect prints that slowly refill over 6 seconds. Active nano-stabilization, he says. Pre-collapse construction tech. Maren stops walking. Her boot scrapes something that rings hollow. They said all the old nanites deactivated after the war. She crouches, brushing dust away with quick practiced motions. Department of Cognitive Integrity scrubbed every... The ground shifts under her weight. A half-meter circle of regolith sinks 3 centimeters with a muffled thump. Maren freezes. Tobias grabs her shoulder harness before she can topple. Their visors reflect each other's widened eyes in the dim light. Echo updates the terrain map. Subsurface cavity detected. Depth 1.8 meters. Dimensions. A pause. Expanding. Maren's glove tightens around Tobias's forearm. They stand motionless as the ground beneath them hums. The vibration travels up through their boots, rattling suit joints with a frequency just shy of painful. Tobias's HUD registers a 3-degree temperature spike localized to their immediate area. Like walking on a drum, Maren whispers. The comms pick up her rapid breathing. They take 3 careful steps forward. The regolith behaves normally again, loose and crumbly. At step 4, Maren's right leg punches through to the knee. Her suit integrity alarm shrieks as jagged metal edges scrape her calf. Tobias yanks her backward into an awkward embrace, his arms locking around her midsection. For 6 heartbeats, neither moves. Dust swirls around their tangled legs. Echo sounds almost annoyed. I did tell you about the cavity. Maren braces against Tobias's shoulder as she extracts her leg. A 10-centimeter gash in her suit reveals layers of mismatched patch jobs underneath. Grafted polymer and what looks like braided plant fibers. Seals fine, she mutters before Tobias can ask. Used kelp cellulose on Europa, holds better than the standard stuff. They crawl the remaining distance to the hole her leg made. Tobias's gloves sink wrist-deep into unusually warm regolith as he widens the opening. The thermal scanner shows a steady 12 degrees CS gradient compared to the surrounding minus 80 degrees dust, impossible without active heating. Maren's fingers brush against something smooth. Her suit lights glint off a curved metal surface. Hatch. She scrapes away more dust, revealing an airlock wheel frozen with oxidation. This shouldn't exist. Echo cross-references the markings. Design matches Lunar Archive 7 schematics. Operational timeline suggests final seal occurred 173 years 4 months ago. A beat. Surface temperature indicates recent activation. Tobias runs a diagnostic on the wheel. His HUD flashes red. No mechanical resistance. It should be locked solid after nearly 2 centuries. Instead, it turns with minimal pressure. Behind them, regolith continues flowing back into the hole Maren created, as if alive. Someone's down there. Maren's statement lands between them with the weight of a confession. Her gloves hover over the hatch controls. Those thermal signatures Echo detected earlier. Tobias checks his oxygen readout. 87 minutes remaining. He catches Maren doing the same math. The unspoken question lingers. Is this worth dying over? The answer comes when Maren grips the wheel with both hands. Her wiry frame tenses as she applies pressure. Rust flakes off in slow-motion arcs. Tobias adds his strength to hers. For 10 seconds, nothing happens. Then, with a screech loud enough to distort their comms, the mechanism breaks free. Air hisses from the edges, not the expected vacuum equalization, but pressurized gas escaping. Tobias's suit analyzes the outflow. Nitrogen-oxygen mix. Trace argon. His breath catches as percentages resolve. Earth standard. Pre-collapse composition. Maren leans over the opening as the dust settles. Her helmet light reflects off metal rungs descending into darkness. The heat signature from below paints her visor with shifting orange patterns. Stairs, she whispers. They built stairs. Echo interrupts with a proximity alert. The same strange thermal signatures from earlier have reached the crater's edge. 6 humanoid shapes moving with purpose toward their position. Maren's fingers tighten around the hatch rim. Their suits record matching spikes in heart rate, respiration, skin conductance. The choice crystallizes without discussion. Maren swings her legs into the hole first. Her boots find the top rung with practiced ease. Tobias follows, sealing the hatch above them just as echo sensors pick up movement 5 meters from their position. The ladder vibrates with each step downward. Strange warmth rises through their boots. At 30 meters depth, Maren halts so abruptly, Tobias nearly collides with her helmet. "Listen," she says. Through the suit's external mics, a mechanical hum. Rhythmic, almost organic. The sound of infrastructure operating long past its intended lifespan. Maren's glove points downward. Lights. Tobias sees them. Pinpricks of dim blue illumination forming a rough corridor. Energy signatures that shouldn't exist flicker in his HUD. Another 10 meters down, the ladder ends abruptly at a platform.
The metal groans under their combined weight.
Before them stretches a hallway lined with recessed lighting. The walls bear deep scratches, parallel gouges at roughly waist height. Maren traces one with her glove. Her voice drops to something barely audible. "This isn't Archive 7. At the corridor's end, a massive vault door stands slightly ajar. Heat pulses from the gap in rhythmic waves. Tobias's radiation detector spikes briefly before settling back to nominal levels. Maren takes the first step forward. Her uneven footsteps echo off walls built for longer strides, for people who expected to walk upright under heavier gravity. Echo attempts a systems check. No wireless signals detected. Local architecture appears. Static drowns the next words. When the link re-establishes, the AI sounds altered, slurred, as if speaking through syrup. Chamber dimensions exceed known archive specifications by 300%. Maren reaches the door first. Her glove squeaks against the metal as she pushes. The gap widens just enough to admit a human form. Beyond lies darkness thick enough to swallow their helmet lights whole. The hatch wheel fights them for every centimeter. 3 full rotations in, Maren's suit servos whine from the strain. Rust flakes spiral downward as frozen gaskets finally break their seal with a tortured hiss. Equalizing air pressure, that shouldn't happen after 173 years. Tobias's visor displays the readout twice, as if double-checking its own sensors. 17 psi, 21% oxygen, humidity holding steady at 58. He blinks away the numbers. Lunar bases don't maintain Earth-standard atmosphere for nearly 2 centuries without maintenance. Frost spiders across the metal as warm interior air meets the cold hatch. The crystals shiver apart when their boots crunch through. Maren's helmet light bounces down a corridor lined with recessed fixtures that flicker to life in sequence ahead of them. Like the vault is waking up, one circuit at a time. The walls feel wrong. Tobias runs his glove along the surface before realizing why. It's dry. Moon dust never loses its static cling, yet these brushed metal panels feel like they were installed yesterday. Every few meters, recessed alcoves hold data rods stacked vertically like wine bottles in a cellar. Maren stops at the third set. Her suit's external mic picks up the slight rasp as she rotates one cylinder. The label swims into focus through condensation on her visor. Her whisper crackles across the comms. "Can you read this?" Tobias's HUD attempts translation. Dead language protocols kick in, overlaying blocky script with translation brackets. Final backup. Do not disturb until safe. His fingers hover over the dates etched beside each rod. Last access timestamps span 70 years, all pre-collapse. Whoever sealed this place didn't expect safe to take so long.
Maren moves down the line, counting under her breath. She pauses at a narrow alcove different from the others. Mounted at child height, it holds no data rods, just a single sheet of paper behind thin glass. Crayon strokes depict 3 stick figures holding hands under a wobbly sun. The paper's edges have been mended with archival tape. Tobias leans closer. The yellowed corner bears faint pencil marks. Alina, age 5, last day at Cambridge. Pre-collapse archivists get romanticized in training vids, stoic guardians of knowledge. No one mentions they save children's drawings alongside fusion reactor schematics. Maren exhales hard enough to fog her visor. They saved everything. Echo's voice cuts through the corridor. Static warps the transmission from above. Atmoscan complete. Breathable air parameters confirmed. Caution advised for... The signal drops. Comes back weaker. Power fluctuations detected. Tobias unseals his helmet before Echo finishes. The air smells like the engineering bay at the academy after holidays. Ozone, metal polish, and that bitter tang of old wiring. Underneath it all lurks something organic, like tea leaves left too long in the tin. His lungs protest the first full breath. Too rich, too thick. Earth air always feels like drowning to born lunar colonists. Maren hesitates, fingers on her helmet release. She's Martian-born. If the records are right, this air comes from her ancestors' nightmares. The heavy, wet atmosphere that collapsed early dome settlements. Her helmet hisses loose. She breathes through clenched teeth at first, expecting catastrophe. When it doesn't come, her shoulders drop 5 centimeters all at once. They follow the corridor's curve. The temperature rises with each step, enough to make their suit cooling systems cycle offline. Condensation drips from overhead pipes bearing no corrosion, no mineral buildup. Tobias counts access panels with identical numeric codes, standardized maintenance for facilities meant to last millennia, a design philosophy abandoned after the collapse taught humanity how fragile systems really were. The hallway ends at an oval chamber. Maren enters first. Her boot scuffs the threshold, kicking up dust that shouldn't exist in filtered air. As they watch, the particles drift toward the center of the room, pulled by some unseen current. The hologram ignites without warning, an explosion of blue and white light that resolves into slow rotations. Tobias's retina adjusts in stages, continental outlines first, then mountain ranges, finally the swirl of weather systems crawling across oceans. Earth, not the fractured nightmare from current orbital images, but the whole marble. Pre-collapse, pre-wars, the way it looked when someone last stood in this room. Maren stumbles forward. Her outstretched hand passes through the Atlantic Ocean's storm systems. Tiny lightning bursts flare around her fingers, distorting the projection. Her reflection floats over Africa, gaunt face superimposed on a continent that doesn't exist anymore. The hologram stutters where her elbow intersects the coastline. California flickers out entirely. A mechanical whine builds from the walls. Tobias spins toward the sound just as a panel slides open near the floor. What emerges moves all wrong, joints stuttering, one optical sensor dark. The maintenance bot's casing shows meteoroid pockmarks healed with crude welds. It drags a failing thruster unit behind it like a broken leg. Visitors. The bot's voice module crackles between octaves. After so long, it lists to port, correcting with bursts from its remaining thruster. Power readings blink emergency red on Tobias's HUD, 2%, maybe less. Echo establishes Apache uplink. Identity, Archive Custodian Model RX-9. Last recorded maintenance cycle exceeded operational limits by static eats the number. Advise caution with memory core integrity. The bot extends a grasping arm toward nothing. Its working optic focuses slightly left of Tobias's shoulder. Ellis, you came back. The arm retracts with a shudder. The children's voices, I kept them safe. A projector hidden in the ceiling flares to life. Grainy footage shows a dozen kids seated in a half-circle, all clapping along to some unheard song. The image skips, freezes, rewinds. The bot's single optic tracks the loop it's played alone for decades. Tobias's stomach lurches when he spots the date stamp in the corner, 3 days before the collapse evacuation orders. Maren kneels. Her knees press into grooves worn by generations of archivists doing the same. You did well, she says. Her fingers hover over the bot's dented casing without touching. The machine shifts, gears protesting. For Ellis. It rolls toward a previously hidden doorway. He'll want... The rest dissolves into static. The new passage glows faint blue. Data rods line these walls too, but these sit in purposeful clusters rather than uniform rows. Each group bears a single name etched into the shelf above it. Tobias's breath catches when he recognizes one. His grandfather's wartime call sign, Echo 7, carved beside a stack of military dispatches. The dates correspond with the Tycho crater last stand. He reaches out, stops himself. Maren stands before a different collection. Her fingers trace the name Dr. Emil Harkness above 6 rods and a leather-bound notebook. The spine cracks when she opens it. A pressed flower flutters to the ground.
its petals disintegrating on contact. The label underneath reads, "Last Rose from New Kyoto." The bot whirs to life behind them. All accounted for. Its optic dims. I waited. Echo's voice cuts through the hissing silence. Memory core deteriorating, attempting transfer of. The feed cuts out mid-word. The bot sags, then rights itself with obvious effort. Maren picks up a random cylinder. The cap comes away with a pop. Inside, a handwritten letter begins. "Dear Kaya, today you turned 5 Earth years." She stops reading before the second sentence. Tobias's HUD blinks warnings. Oxygen levels dropping faster than projected. The vault's life support must be failing. He steps toward the doorway just as the bot reactivates with a surge of power. Message for Alice. Its voice clears unnaturally. The last perfect recall before total shutdown. A hidden speaker plays a recording of a tired man's voice. "If you're hearing this, humanity survived, that's enough." The bot's optic winks out. It collapses forward onto the exact spot where Maren stood moments before. Tobias catches a faint hum from deeper in the vault, systems powering down in sequence after their final activation. The holographic Earth flickers once, twice, googie. In the sudden dark, Maren's hand finds Tobias's. Neither speaks as the last lights die around them. Somewhere above, metal groans against regolith. The vault remembers how to sleep. The first sound is metal grinding against metal. A shambling shape emerges from the shadows near the vault's interior wall. The caretaker bot moves wrong, its left thruster unit dragging right arm jerking in aborted motions. Pockmarks crater its casing where micrometeoroids struck over decades. Power readouts flicker on Tobias's HUD, 2% remaining. Red warning glyphs indicate catastrophic energy depletion. Taio, it stops 2 meters away. One dark optic stares blindly. The other lens focuses just left of Tobias's shoulder. Visitors. Its voice module crackles between octaves. After so long, Tobias's. Maren freezes mid-step. Her glove hovers near her hip, where no weapon hangs. Common protocol dictates caution with rogue AI after the Turing purges, but this machine predates those laws by a century. Oh, Echo establishes a tremulous uplink. Caretaker model RX-9. Static warps the transmission. Last recorded maintenance cycle exceeded operational limits by numbers dissolve into white noise 2. The bot lurches forward, its functioning arm extends toward empty air. Elis, the designation lands between them like a stone. "You came back." Tobias checks the mission logs. No Ellis listed on any Lira-3 rosters. His grandfather's journals mentioned an Elissander Varn, lost with the Tycho crater garrison. The dates align. 58 years overdue for recall. Oh, Maren kneels slowly. Her Martian-made boots scrape lunar dust from grooves worn by generations of archivists doing the same. The bot's head assembly twitches toward the sound. Its voice clears unnaturally, memory core dumping reserve power into one final coherent message. The children's voices. A projector hidden in its chest plate flares to life. Grainy footage shows 12 kids clapping in rhythm to some unheard song. I kept them safe. The recording loops. 3 seconds of laughter cut with static. Dates in the corner place it 3 days before the collapse evacuation orders. "You did well," Maren says. Her fingers never quite touch the battered casing.
Echo's diagnostics scroll across Tobias's visor. Ancient caretaker AIs were programmed with human conversational patterns. Inflection points, pauses for breath. This one's speech rhythms still follow those forgotten protocols. It nods at Maren's praise, gears whining. All accounted for. The bot pivots toward a wall panel none of them noticed. Hidden seams glow faint blue under layers of dust. For Ellis. Its thruster sputters. When he comes home. The panel slides aside. Cold air greases out. Older than the vault's recycled atmosphere. Tobias's oxygen alert pings once. Maren's glove light cuts through the dark, revealing shelves upon shelves of data rods. Echo's uplink stabilizes momentarily. Memory core contains personal correspondence from pre-collapse personnel. Maren lifts the nearest cylinder. The cap detaches with a pop. Inside, a handwritten letter begins. "Dear Kaya, today you turned 5 Earth years." Her voice breaks before the second sentence. Tobias finds military dispatches stacked beside pressed flowers. One envelope bears his grandfather's wartime call sign, Echo 7, etched in fading ink. The paper crumbles at the edges when he lifts it. The bot watches with its single functioning eye. Power levels dipped below 1%.
They wanted you to know. Maren opens another letter at random. Her gloves smudge the ink as she traces words meant for someone else's eyes decades ago. How many? 97% deceased. Echo's tone flattens. Collapse casualty records confirm. Silence thickens. The bot's remaining thruster dies with a shudder. It lists sideways but doesn't fall. Maren catches it by the shoulder joint, an instinctive gesture that surprises them both. Her fingers dent the thin metal where corrosion ate through. It didn't know, Tobias says. The caretaker's head swivels toward him. That wrong focus again, looking through him at some ghost called Ellis. Its vocalizer produces a sound almost like coughing. Final message. Hidden speakers play a recording none of them expected, a tired man's voice rasping through static. If you're hearing this, humanity survived. That's enough. The bot's optic dims. Power readouts flatline. It slumps forward onto the exact spot where Maren stood moments before. Echo's uplink terminates abruptly. The vault's lights flicker, systems powering down in sequence after their final activation. Maren doesn't move. Her shadow stretches across shelves of letters addressed to people who never came home. Outside, the lunar surface remains still, cold, waiting. The caretaker's last act plays on a loop, 3 seconds of children's laughter in a world that hadn't ended yet. Tobias counts breaths until his oxygen warning blinks red. 90 minutes remaining. Enough time to read one more letter. Enough time to pretend they aren't the ghosts this place was meant for.
Maren reaches for another data rod. Her gloves leave smudges on pristine casings. The motion sensor lights follow her down the rows, each step illuminating another cluster of stories, waiting 58 years too long. Echo reactivates silently. Its memory core glows dim blue where the caretakers used to be. The transfer completed itself in those last moments. 73% of correspondence remains unread, it says. Tobias checks the atmospheric seals. Stable, for now. The vault won't hold pressure forever. Maren lifts a final data rod. This one bears no label, just a smeared thumbprint near the cap. Inside, a single sheet of paper unfolds to reveal a child's drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands under a wobbly sun. The bot's voice plays from Echo's speakers, its last gift transplanted into new hardware. They saved everything. Outside, buried beneath centuries of dust, the moon remembers how to forget. The caretaker lies still where it fell. Maren folds the drawing carefully along its original creases. Tobias seals the vault door behind them with a groan of metal on metal. Echo's display flickers once before stabilizing. Solar arrays confirm dawn approaching. 93 minutes until sunlight hits Lira-3's main panels. Plenty of time to walk back through the cold. The air in the vault smells like old paper and something faintly floral, preservation chemicals long since evaporated. Maren selects a data rod at random from the nearest shelf. It pops open with a sound like cracking ice. Inside, a single sheet of paper unfolds with brittle edges. Her gloved fingers struggle with the creases at first. The handwriting starts mid-page, where someone pressed too hard with their pen. "Dear Kaya," she reads aloud. "Today, you turned 5 Earth years old." Her voice hitches on the next word. She doesn't finish the sentence. Tobias finds a different cluster nearby, military dispatches bundled with fraying ribbon. The top document bears his grandfather's call sign, Echo 7. The date matches the final transmission from Tycho Crater. His gloves leave smudges on the thermal paper as he skims the formal language. Standard casualty reports never mention how Major Tobias Callahan died covering his squad's retreat. They certainly don't describe how he jammed the airlock controls with his own femur to buy 14 extra minutes. This version does. Echo's scan completes with a soft ping, cross-referencing names with collapsed databases. A pause too long to be natural. 97% confirmed deceased. Average survival window post-evacuation order, 6 days. Maren folds Kaya's letter along its original creases. The paper remembers the folds better than she does. Her gloves come away flecked with ink where the writing transferred through decades of handling. "Someone wrote all these," she says. gesturing at them. Tobias runs a comparison scan between samples. Echo highlights matching pressure patterns in the handwriting. 63% share identical stroke weight and letter spacing. The conclusion hangs unspoken, one lonely archivist writing letters for people who'd never read them. Pre-collapse psych reports flash on Tobias's visor, memory hoarding disorder, classified as pathological after the Mars outbreak. They said preserving too much of the past prevented people from surviving the present. The vault itself contradicts that theory. Every shelf stands neatly ordered, each artifact tagged with meticulous care. This wasn't madness, it was love. Maren stops at a slim volume bound in faded blue cloth. The spine cracks when she opens it to reveal pressed flowers between every page. One crumbles at her touch, releasing a scent like ghosts of lavender and citrus. The label beneath reads, "Last Rose from New Kyoto." Her fingertips hover over the stain it leaves behind, a perfect outline of petals that haven't existed for 70 years. "They wanted us to know," she says, closing the book with excessive care. "Not just the big moments, the ordinary days too." Tobias checks oxygen levels, 83 minutes remaining. He should care more about that number. Instead, he finds himself staring at a child's drawing taped to the wall nearby. Crayon stick figures hold hands beneath a lopsided sun. Someone had written, "Alina, age 5" in careful print below it. The tape yellows but holds. Echo interrupts with another alert. Bot memory core download completing. The caretaker's remaining optic flickers as data streams into Echo's storage. Its body slumps further against the shelf, joints locking in place. Maren picks up one last data rod from a shelf marked for Ellis. This one feels heavier than the others. The contents resolve into a single audio file, dated 1 day before the collapse evacuation. She presses play, before Tobias can suggest caution. A man's voice fills the vault, exhausted but clear. "If you're hearing this, humanity survived." A pause, filled with static that might have been breathing. That's enough. The caretaker bot shudders. Its remaining systems discharge in one final burst. The optic winks out. Motors whine down through octaves until only the vault's ambient hum remains. Echo's interface lights up unexpectedly, memory transfer complete. Its usual cadence shifts slightly, something warmer in the synthetic voice. "I have their names." Maren doesn't move for 12 seconds. Then she reaches blindly for Tobias's arm. Her glove finds his wrist seal and grips tighter than necessary. The oxygen counter ticks down to 78 minutes. Outside, through meters of lunar rock, dawn approaches. Solar panels will reactivate soon. Until then, the vault's temperature drops by perceptible degrees. Tobias pockets his grandfather's dispatch. Maren takes the book of flowers. Neither speaks as Echo dims its lights to conserve power. Not because they need to, but because the caretaker would have. The corridor back feels longer than before. Their boots leave fresh prints in dust that's still settling after decades. At the ladder, Maren hesitates. Her helmet lamp catches the caretaker's final position, curled around nothing in particular. Protecting nothing left to protect. Echo plays the children's laughter recording one last time as they ascend. The sound echoes through metal rungs, distorted by time and damaged speakers. 3 seconds of joy preserved against all odds. The hatch wheel turns with less resistance this time. Lunar dust cascades into the opening as Tobias pushes through. Dawn tints the eastern crater rim pink. Maren's visor reflects the color back at him when she turns. Echo calculates the walk back to base will take 23 minutes at current oxygen expenditure rates. Plenty of time for silence. Plenty of time to pretend they aren't carrying the weight of all those ordinary, fragile days back into the light. The vault seals itself behind them with a sigh of equalizing pressure. Somewhere below, systems power down in careful sequence. Lights extinguish row by row. The holographic Earth winks out. Tomek Her. Only the letters remain, only the names, and Echo, quietly sorting through memories that were never meant to be lonely. Rear. Marin's hand finds Tobias's again as they walk. Neither pretends it's for balance. The stars overhead watch with the same indifference as always. Somewhere beyond them, other vaults might wait. Other caretakers, Mollins. They'll look tomorrow. For now, there's sunrise, there's breath, there's enough. Tour. The base lights shimmer through the dust ahead. Echo plays the laughter again, softer this time, just for them. The airlock cycled shut behind them with the hiss of equalizing pressure. Tobias checked his oxygen readout. 63 minutes remaining if they walked fast. Marin already had her helmet off, shaking dust from her hair while staring at the data rod in her other hand. Keller. Echo's voice filled the corridor first. Transmission risks detected. These archives contain pre-castle encryption signatures that could trigger dormant security protocols Earthside. The warning light on Tobias's wrist display pulsed red. Probability of automated response, 79%. Door, 12. Marin didn't look up from the rod. We broadcast everything. Full archive dump on all frequencies. 12, 12. Tobias peeled off his gloves slower than necessary. Some memories hurt more than they help. 2, 10. The argument that followed wasn't loud, just tense. Marin paced the narrow corridor, rod clutched white-knuckled in her fist. We don't get to decide what's remembered. Echo. Tobias countered while recalibrating his suit seals. We're deciding what wounds get reopened. 2.
Ego displayed the Mars time capsule incident report without being asked. 6 years ago, a similar pre-collapse archive was recovered from the Valles Marineris. 40% of next-of-kin recipients requested memory deletions after accessing the files. One notable case involved a woman who learned her grandmother had survived the initial cataclysm waves, only to starve slowly in a failing bunker with 2 unopened ration tins labeled for Kaya's birthday. Marin stopped pacing by the vault central terminal. Her fingers brushed over a smaller shelf labeled in faded marker, "For those who come after." She lifted the lone data rod resting there. No encryption markers, no ownership stamps, just that single phrase in careful block letters. Echo's alert pinged twice. Failsafe detected. Removing any artifact from this section triggers total vault lockdown in 60 minutes. Tobias checked his oxygen again. 51 minutes now. The math wasn't kind. Marin weighed the rod in her palm. This one's meant to travel. They stood frozen for 17 seconds, recorded precisely by Echo's internal chronometer. Outside, the lunar dust shifted in patterns no human eyes witnessed. Somewhere beneath their boots, the caretaker bot's last power cell sputtered out completely. Tobias broke first. One rod, the unencrypted one. He pointed to the shelf rather than reach for it himself. That's what they left for people like us. Marin hesitated. Her eyes flicked to the other shelves. The military dispatches, the personal letters, the children's drawings. So much left behind. She exhaled sharply through her nose and pocketed the single rod. The vault responded instantly. Hidden speakers emitted a low, atonal chime. Echo translated. Final archival cycle initiated. 59 minutes until permanent seal. They moved faster on the return trip. The ladder rungs felt colder, the corridor lights dimmer. Tobias counted each step, not out of fear but to memorize the path. Part of him already knew they'd never walk these passages again. Echo monitored the failsafe countdown alongside their oxygen levels. 30 minutes to the surface. 30 minutes for the vault to prepare its long sleep. The math held, barely. Marin stopped, halfway up the ladder. Wait. Tobias almost plowed into her boots. What? She didn't answer at first, just reached into her hip pouch and removed the pressed flower book from earlier. With deliberate care, she wedged it between 2 ladder supports, leaving a piece of the vault outside its own tomb. Echo made a sound almost like disapproval. Historical preservation protocols. Say nothing about flowers, Marin finished. She started climbing again. The surface greeted them with cruel brightness. Dawn painted the crater rim in pinks and oranges that felt inappropriate for what they'd just done, sealed away centuries of human memory under lunar regolith.
Tobias checked the horizon reflexively. Somewhere out there, 6 thermal signatures still roamed the mare in Genii. He wondered if they'd reach the vault before it sealed, if they'd try to stop the process, if they'd even care. Marin's hand found his elbow. Walk faster, they did. The base lights shimmered ahead like a mirage, growing incrementally larger with each labored step. Echo ran preliminary scans on the rod in Maren's pocket the whole way, careful not to trigger any dormant protocols while still extracting what data it could. First file appears benign, it announced as Lira-3's airlock came into clear view. Children's educational primer titled, "Hello, New Friend." Tobias expected ancient history, technical schematics, maybe survivor accounts, not a child's book. The airlock cycled open with its usual groan. Inside, the familiar hum of life support systems and the faint tang of recycled air greeted them like old acquaintances. Maren removed her helmet with shaking hands and immediately reached for the rod. Echo Deco displayed the first page on the main screen. Simple line drawings accompanied basic text. Air is for sharing, water is for sharing, the stars are for everyone. Margins contained handwritten notes from different people across generations. One passage caught Tobias's eye, a messy scrawl near the chapter on constellations. "Remember Elis, the sky looks the same from everywhere." Maren read it too. Her fingers traced the words without touching the screen. "They knew we'd come," she murmured. Echo analyzed the handwriting. Match found. Identical to Vault caretaker maintenance logs. Outside, the lunar surface remained still. The Vault's final sealing mechanism wouldn't register on any of Lira-3's sensors. Just one more quiet ending on a satellite full of them. Tobias made tea while Maren read aloud. Her voice steadied with each page. His hands stopped shaking when the steam hit his face. Echo dimmed the lights, not for energy conservation, but because the caretaker would have. The rod held one final surprise. On the last page, beneath a star chart with Earth circled in red chalk, someone had written, "Bring some home for us." Maren reached across the table. Tobias took her hand. Some silences aren't emptiness. Some are just waiting for the right moment to end. Echo began the slow work of decoding the rest. Outside, the stars kept their usual watch. The moon held its secrets a little tighter. And in the space between breaths, something almost like peace settled over Lira-3. For now. The rod's first file flickered to life on the screen. A simple children's primer titled, "Hello, New Friend." The opening page showed cartoonish drawings of hands shaking across a starfield. Maren cleared her throat before reading aloud, her voice steadier than it had been in days. "Air is for sharing, water is for sharing, the stars are for everyone."
Tobias busied himself with a tea brewer, adjusting the settings to her preference, 2 degrees cooler than his own, with an extra pinch of those Martian herbs she'd salvaged from her suit pockets. Echo analyzed the text as Maren turned pages. Primer emphasizes pre-collapse social concepts no longer in standard education modules. A highlighted passage appeared mid-screen. Sometimes friends disagree. Try listening first. The margin bore a handwritten note in faded ink. Ellis forgot this lesson at Tycho, paid with 3 teeth. Maren's finger traced the cursive. They used this to teach kids after the wars. Tobias set her tea down precisely within reach. Looks like. The next section covered basic astronomy, with scratchy drawings of constellations. Someone had inked corrections to the star positions, likely as navigational data shifted post-collapse. A different hand added below. Pleiades cluster now 0.3 degrees farther east. Update your charts, Kaya. Sexy zoomed in on a smudged footnote. Handwriting analysis confirms 7 distinct contributors across this document. Time span suggests multiple generations adding annotations. Maren turned to a chapter on plant growth. The illustration showed hydroponic systems nearly identical to Lira-3's current setup. A red-inked correction caught her eye. Skip nitrate boosters. Mars strain thrives on 20% less. Her lips twitched. They were still figuring it out too. Tobias watched her trace the words. He'd seen that same careful motion when she handled the pressed flowers from the vault. Something about the way her gloves left faint smudges on the screen made his chest tighten. The primer's tone shifted near the end. The drawings grew simpler, just a single child waving at a smiling Earth. The text read, "When you're lonely, remember, home is where someone misses you." 3 separate handwriting samples crowded the margins here. The most faded one said, "Tell Ellis." A newer entry responded, "He knows." The freshest ink simply stated, "I'm still waiting." Echo dimmed the overhead lights, not for power conservation, but because the caretaker bot would have. The ambient hum of the climate controls softened to match the vault's remembered quiet. Marin reached the final page. A star chart filled the screen. Earth circled in red chalk. Beneath it, in letters large enough for a child to copy, someone had written, "Come visit someday." The ink bled through the paper. Tobias realized he was smiling. Not the polite twitch he gave Echo's jokes, but something looser, unplanned. Marin caught it before he could school his features. She didn't look away. The moment stretched. Echo broke it with a calculated cough. Supplementary materials located. Cache includes 37 similar educational. Later, Tobias said.
Marin saved the file with a tap to her wrist console. The screen faded to black, leaving them in the dim glow of emergency lighting. Her tea sat untouched, steam curling toward the vents. Hammer Echo ran a discreet diagnostic. Marin's respiration had stabilized at 14 breaths per minute, her calmest reading since arrival. Tobias's grip on his mug showed no tremors. The AI logged the observations without comment. Outside, the stars watched through Lira-3's observation ports. The same constellations as in the primer, though none of the names matched anymore. The Great Bear had become the Shattered Spear. Orion's belt now marked the Titan's grin. Marin stretched her arms overhead, joints popping after hours in the vault. Her elbow brushed Tobias's shoulder. Neither moved to correct the contact. "Think they knew we'd find it?" she asked. Tobias considered the primer's margins, all those layered messages across decades. They hoped. Echo displayed the last annotated page again. The "Come visit someday" message pulsed gently under the star map. A navigation prompt appeared alongside it, coordinates for Earth's scorched continents. Marin exhaled through her nose. Her fingers drummed the table in a rhythm Tobias recognized from the vault's recording, the children's clapping song. The silence between them didn't feel empty anymore, just waiting. Marin reached across the table. Her glove had a small tear near the pinky, exposing a sliver of skin. Tobias took her hand without hesitation. Her palm was warmer than he expected. Echo's systems hummed in standby mode. The primer's files waited in tidy folders. The vault's final seal clicked shut, kilometers away. No one spoke. Outside, the stars kept their vigil. The moon's slow rotations continued, unimpeded. Somewhere beneath Mara Ingenie, the caretaker bot's last power cell cooled in the dark. Marin's thumb moved first, a slight pressure against Tobias's wrist. His fingers responded instinctively, tightening just enough to say, "I'm here," without words. The tea cooled in its cups. The primer's final page lingered on screen. The air recyclers whispered their endless cycle. For the first time in years, Tobias thought he might understand what the old archives meant about silence. Not absence, not emptiness, just the space between words where everything important lives. Marin squeezed his hand once before letting go. Her glove left a faint smudge on his knuckles, ink from the primer's margins mixed with lunar dust. Tobias didn't wipe it off. Mare Echo reactivated at half brightness. Dawn in 17 minutes. Solar arrays will require manual inspection following last night's dust storm. They stood together. Marin pocketed the data rod. Tobias collected the cups, routine tasks, to fill the quiet while something fragile took root between them. The primer's first page floated in Tobias's memory. "Hello, new friend." Simple words for a complicated moment. Outside, the stars watched patiently, as they had for millennia. As Yaoni. Neither mentioned the vault again that morning. Neither needed to. Kauni Nala, the primer's files stayed saved on Echo's drive. The coordinates to Earth remained flagged. The memory of Marin's hand in his lingered longer than the tea's warmth. Kauni Nala, Echo ran systems checks in the background, its usual efficiency softened by something Tobias couldn't name. The AI had stopped mentioning the caretaker bot's final transmission, the one that played the children's laughter until the power died. Kauni Nala. Some silences deserved keeping. Arstorth Caltifans present. Marin paused at the doorway, data rod glinting in her palm. Tobias matched her step for step down the corridor. The star charts on the walls showed constellations neither could name anymore. Kali Nyla. It didn't matter. Kali Nyla. The primer's last lesson hummed between them, unspoken but understood. Kali Nyla. Come visit someday. Kali Nyla. Maybe they would. Kali Nyla care. The archive sleeps under lunar dust again, its secrets now shared by 3. Those letters, those voices, they weren't meant to be lonely forever. Some silences aren't emptiness, they're the space between notes in a song you're just learning. Kali Nyla. Think of all the things we set aside to keep safe, photos in boxes, notes folded small, even data rods hidden under moon rock. Not because they're secret, but because they matter too much to shout about. Kali Nyla. If you've ever held on to something small and fragile just to say, I remember, you already understand Moonbase Lira-3. Some lights stay bright enough in the dark.